Hey, what's going on, guys? I'll be taking a look at this Yoopik practice lockpicking set.
This is essentially just your regular lockpicking set, but it actually comes with locks that are kind of like transparent, so it'll allow you to see what you're actually doing inside the lock and kind of see how locks work and all that, which is pretty cool. Definitely a good idea. I mean, it kind of makes sense that in order to learn how to pick a lock, you know how a lock works, and so if we kind of go ahead and open this up here, you'll see that the locks are actually kind of an acrylic material, and so then you can actually see the internals of the lock and see how it works and all that. So this is just the box it comes in. It is pretty nice packaging despite how simple it is. It's just a regular box and it says Yoopik on the front, and then you can kind of open it like this, and then you have the things inside here. So these are all of the lock picking tools. If we go ahead and open this up, you can see all the lock picking tools. We'll get into that in a second. And then the two remaining things are just the clear locks. So as you can see, we have this style of lock. I'm not sure exactly what it's called per se, but you can see this just like this. So we have a lock like this with a keyhole on either side here, and then we have two keys for this lock. So if we go ahead and like stick a key in here, you just go like this, and then you twist it. You can see it actually like pushes on these springs here, which allows it to release and turn and all that. And you can't get the key out unless you've actually turned it to this point here, because then you're able to pull the key out because it's kind of reset the lock. So pretty cool that you can just see the internals of a lock and how a lock works and all that. It is definitely a useful kit for actually learning how to pick locks, because it's good to know how a lock works, like I said. And personally with me, it's like I'm a very visual learner, so if I'm actually like looking at this lock and interacting with it and seeing how everything works myself, then I get a much better idea of how the internal components of a lock actually work. One thing to note is that these pieces here aren't clear, so as you can see it's still like metal in here because it is a lock, so it has to be fairly solid. So it doesn't really help you necessarily in like actually picking the lock. Like you can't see what the tools are doing or anything like that really. I mean, you can a little bit just because of the springs and things like that, but you really can't see what you're doing all that well, so it won't really help you actually totally pick the lock. It'll just kind of help you understand how a lock works, which might aid you in picking the lock, but it won't really teach you how to pick the lock or anything like that. What I thought was a little odd is there wasn't any instruction manual or anything like that. There wasn't like a list of what each tool is used for or anything like that, so we just have the two locks, the 4 keys, and then a bunch of tools for actually picking the lock. So anyway, yeah, this is the first lock we get here, and then the second lock here is just standard padlock. It does come in a nice hard case. I'm not really sure why that is, just because the other one came in a plastic bag, but I'm not complaining because it is a pretty nice case. So you can just go ahead and open this up, and then we have the padlock here. Again, same kind of acrylic case here, so you're able to see what is going on inside the lock when you unlock it. We do have 2 keys for this as well, but the 2 keys are linked by a little key ring here, which is nice. So if we go ahead and open this, you can kind of see how this lock works as well. First and foremost, we got to put the key in the right way. So we're going to put it in like this. You should be able to see that when we twist it, it actually like moves some things. So this twist, which activates a spring up here and does all these things. So you can see just kind of how the internal components of a lock work, and it's very, very cool because it will, like I said, kind of help you understand just how a lock works, which should aid in you actually picking the locks. Obviously, lock picking is not easy, but this should help you a little bit just because it'll help you understand how locks work, and that is definitely the first part. So here we have the actual lock picking set. This did come in a little plastic bag inside of this pouch, but I went ahead and took them all out just because the plastic bag was kind of annoying to open every time. And this pouch is kind of just for carrying these. So if we go ahead and put all these tools out, you can see that we do get quite a few tools here. It is definitely a lot more than I was expecting, just because I didn't think there were that many sizes of things for picking locks. But however, I was proven wrong. As you can see, there are a bunch of different tools here. I'll go ahead and kind of lay them out so you can see all the different heads and everything like that. So kind of no matter what the lock is, you should have a tool here for picking it. We do have the little pliers and this for like applying the tension and all of that. And then we just have the actual things here for like picking the lock and activating the springs and all these things. So as you can see, we do have some very interesting kind of shaped heads here. These are very specific, as you can see. So we do have a bunch of different shapes here just because there are a bunch of different kinds of locks. And so theoretically with this, you should be able to pick almost any lock. However, you will definitely need the knowledge of how to pick the lock, and this kit doesn't provide that at all. It does provide you with kind of like, you can just kind of mess around with these clear locks and things like that, and you might eventually get it, but it doesn't provide any instructions on how to actually pick the locks whatsoever. There might be like a legal issue or something like that, but if you also like go on YouTube or the internet, you can totally see how to pick locks and all of that. As for the actual like structural integrity of these, I'm not sure it's the greatest. It looks a lot cheaper than it actually is. Like if you try to bend this, you can bend it a little bit, but not anything ridiculous. And this piece here is fairly flexible. So they are fairly cheap tools, which seems like it would be a problem when you're actually picking locks, because you're really relying on these to like activate tough springs and things like that, so you definitely don't want these to be cheap. And just like how flexible they are and everything, that I'm a little worried that they would break inside of a lock, which would mean that not only you failed to pick the lock, it would also like break the lock, because part of this would be stuck inside of the lock, so even a key wouldn't work. So I am a little worried about this. However, it's not that big of a deal if you're like practicing on these or something like that, and then maybe you can like use these to practice on the locks that they include, and then buy a nicer lock picking set for actually picking locks, because I think this will work a little bit, but honestly these are just really cheap. For applying tension and all of that, I feel like these shouldn't be as flexible as they are. Like I said, it's not that big of a deal, I guess, because you are just kind of using it to mess around with the locks that they include. However, if you try to use this on an actual lock, I would be worried about like some of the tips of them breaking off inside the lock and then breaking the lock, which is something you don't want to do, especially when you like paid money to break your lock. It's kind of not a good deal. So I would recommend just using this to kind of mess around with the locks that they included. It's a very cool idea to include the clear locks here, so you can actually learn how a lock works and all that. But like I said, I would recommend picking up a nicer lock picking set for actually picking locks in like doors and things like that, just because I would be worried about these breaking or just not being strong enough to actually pick a lock. But yeah, anyway, this has been my review of the Yoopik practice lock picking set. If you guys like to purchase the product, of course the link will be in the description, as it always is. And if you enjoyed this video, then a like rating is always appreciated. If you have a question about this or something like that, you feel free to leave a comment, and if you'd like to see more videos similar to this one, then feel free to subscribe. This has been Jordan for Jolt Reviews. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in my next review.